Do your YouTube videos sound like a Hollywood movie? No? Then buckle up, cowgirl. I'm going to show you what I learned after spending 18 years in Hollywood editing commercials for some of the biggest movies on earth.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
One of the greatest ways to level up your videos is with cinematic sound design. What I share with you here today works with any editing program, so you need to watch this no matter what app you use. I've created a short video with some voiceover, and I'm going to show you how to sound design it like a cinematic Hollywood movie using CapCut. All of the elements I've used in this tutorial are linked in the free download below, and you're really going to want them because there's a bunch of beautiful cinematic stuff, including drone shots, and since I filmed all of them, I'm giving you permission to use them wherever and however you want. So hit that download link right now. The elements will also help you follow along in this tutorial, and this is one of those that you want to bookmark and watch again and again until you get this stuff down. It's a little bit advanced, and once you master this stuff, there's nobody in your niche that's gonna be able to touch how your videos sound. I've given you all of the elements two different ways. Number one, you have all of these clips right here that you see in this timeline, and all of them have handles, meaning there's a little bit before, a little bit after. You can kind of do your own edit. The other way is I just exported all of this stuff so you have just the video clips, and a few of the clips have some sound which you can use or not use, and that would be this clip here, and it's called Sound Design Video Only right there. So if I just scroll through it, it's all of that just already exported to make it simple for you. We're going to sound design most of this using CapCut's built-in sound effects and music, but the music in CapCut can sometimes get you copyright issues, and the sound effects are kind of limited, so I'm going to give you something else you're going to want to watch. Here's a Hollywood secret. When you are working in Hollywood as an editor for TV spots and movie trailers for big movies, all the editors run around with one of these. At least when I was doing it, the drives look like this. And you go to a new place to work, a new trailer house, they call them, where you make movie trailers, and you plug this thing into the server and you download all their sound effects, and then you upload all your sound effects. And it kind of works out that all the editors and all the trailer houses have the same sound effects library with tens of thousands of sound effects dating back to, a long time, so some are pretty old. So what I'm including for you is actually over 100 of those free sound effects that I stole from Hollywood, and they're pretty great. Swishes and whooshes and ambient sounds and water and rivers and waterfalls and junk. So you want to hit that download link as well right now. I'll wait. I'm going to let you pause it. I promise you want these. All right, let's jump in and sound design this thing. Let's start with the voiceover, and you can do things different ways. You can do voiceover first or music first. Ideally, you're going to choose a music track before you ever hit record. That way you can know what vibe you're going for when you're filming it. But right now we're going to drop in the voiceover first. Just going to click and drag it down here, and I'll adjust it maybe slightly. I've timed it with this export right here of it the way I like it, but you can cut it and move things around if you want to adjust the timing a little bit. Timing is something that takes a long time to learn with both music and sound effects and voiceover. So you'll get a feel for it by just doing it more and then watching other YouTubers, watch movies, watch commercials, and see how they time things. Next, we're going to add the music, and we're going to use CapCut's music. I'm just going to jump up here into audio and type cinematic, because we want something cinematic. Now, music is huge. You should never, ever, ever add music just to have background noise. Your music should drive your cut, and the purpose of music is to create an emotion. You want your viewers to feel something. So when you're thinking about your music, what do you want them to feel? For our video, I want viewers to feel a sense of wonder at how beautiful the planet is, and maybe even have kind of emotions stir up inside them. So when you're choosing a music track, think, again, what do you want them to feel? Now under cinematic, we have a bunch of options. I already found one, so I'm just going to type in the name Cinematic Piano, I believe. This is the one right here. Yeah, that's the track that I want. So we're just going to drop it in like this. And one thing that you should practice doing now is keeping each type of audio on a separate track. So here in this first track, we can have the voiceover. Here in this second track, and it's going to be the second and third track, we're going to have the music. And then beneath that, we're going to have the sound effects. When I was working in Hollywood, I usually had the music at the very bottom because sound effects would be a bunch more layers, but we're just going to leave it like this to keep it simple. Just try to avoid having sound effects on the voiceover music tracks because it gets kind of messy. And if you ever graduate to other editing programs, there's other reasons for that as well. So try to get in the habit of keeping your audio tracks organized, and everything's going to be much simpler for you. Now we can see that the music track is way too long, so I'm just going to shorten it to start, but I'm going to show you something kind of cool after that. Now maybe you want to edit to the beat. I've already cut a little bit of this to the beat of the music and to the music, but you should know this. In CapCut, if you click on your music track and you click on this AI marker button here, watch what it does. It gives you the option to do beat 1 or beats 2. Beats 2 gives you more beats, more things to cut on. So I'm just going to click on beats 2 and let it do its thing, and bam, it added all of these markers. I'm going to zoom in so you can see what's going on, but it does a pretty good job of adding a marker at the right beats. And you'll notice that for these first few tracks, I cut to the beat and it lined up right with those markers. And that really helps sell the shot and makes it feel more pro if things are cut to the beat. You don't want to cut everything to the beat because it becomes too predictable, but you often want to do that, and it's really going to help your stuff look way more pro. The second thing that most people skip on YouTube is how to end the music. Like, oh, well, the music is 3 minutes long and my video is only 50 seconds long. How to make it end right? Here's what most people do. They'll just go to the end and go, oh, it ends here. Let me just drag this out and have it fade out at the end like this. And that just feels like you didn't know what you were doing. So in Hollywood, it was a little bit harder because you had to hit a hard 15 seconds or 30 seconds or 60 seconds. So the music had to end exactly correct, and it was a little bit rougher. Here we can mess with the cut a little bit if we need to make it a little longer or shorter, make it end right. But how do you do that? So what we're gonna do is just extend this track back out again by clicking and dragging it all the way out so you see the whole thing. I'm gonna hit Shift Z on the keyboard so we can see it all. And it has a nice end here. Listen to the ending. So it's a very definite end. Wouldn't that be great if that was here? Well, it can be there. What you do is we just cut it, I don't know, somewhere around here towards the end, and we find a way for it to line up. Now we do have a little bit of slack because you'll notice that the audio fades out here, so it doesn't have to be exact, so it gives us a little room to play with. So what I'm gonna do is drag this back this away, and what we're gonna do is listen and look for where the beat is so that we can transition this first part into the end without anybody ever really noticing. So it's gonna drag this back a little bit, and I'm gonna solo this one right here. Solo meaning I wanna only play this so I can kind of feel where there might be a beat, and then I'm gonna kind of look for it. So I'm gonna turn this guy off and just hear this guy for a second. So that's kind of a change right there. It goes dun, dun. And so right there, it's dun, dun, dun. So that's a possibility for where this other one might be able to line up with it. So I'm going to turn this guy off and turn this guy on and see where there's an emphasis in the beat here. Wow, so right there, it's dun, dun. So it could be there. Let's see if that was it. I forgot where the other one was. I should have trimmed it. We're going to listen to this guy again. Wow, it accidentally lined up basically exactly correctly, I think. And the way you tell is we drag this back to here, and I'm going to turn this guy back on, and let's listen. Wow. That lined up perfectly. So you would never know that this song wasn't cut specifically for our video. So we're just going to end it right here, like that. And here we're going to have some other little sound effects. It's going to be kind of a fun ending. So now we've got the voiceover, we've got the music. We can shift the voiceover a little bit. What do we do next? We want to add the sound effects and use and tweak the existing sounds. A lot of these are drone shots, so they don't have any sounds. We have to add it, and sometimes we want to enhance the existing sounds. Let's go ahead and watch maybe 10 seconds of this without sound effects so you get a feel for what it's going to sound like with sound effects. I'm going to turn my voiceover on, and I'm going to position my voiceover where I want it to start. I love water. The Rogue River surges with a wild, untamed spirit. Move it back just a tiny bit. Now, one thing you'll notice is that the voiceover is too quiet and the music is too loud. If you want to see what the levels are, you just click on this levels meter, and now we can see the levels. And our goal is to have everything peak just about -1 dB. In the entertainment industry, in the real world, you need to be peaking at like -20 to -12. But on YouTube, everybody has it cranked, so we're going to crank it as much as we can without it distorting. Once it goes over 0 here, it's going to be distorted and sound cruddy. So you never want stuff to go over 0. Just keep it just under the 0. So first, let's get our audio levels a little better. I'm going to click on them, and in CapCut, if I go to Basic, we have this feature called Loudless Normalization. Loudless Normalization normalizes the level and tries to make it an even kind of louder volume throughout. So I'm going to click on it and watch what happens. You'll see these all raise up a little bit. I just click on it, and bam, they're all jumped up, and now it's going to be a little better.
I love water. The Rogue River surges with a wild, untamed spirit.
You'll notice that it's clipping a little bit. It's getting into the red a little bit. Watch.
The Rogue River.
So I'm a little loud, maybe, and the music is a little loud. So we're just going to turn the music down a tiny bit. And this is soft music, so it can actually be pretty loud. Usually I'll have music down to like -15, -20, but here if I just go down to like -10, it's probably going to be good.
Surges with a wild, untamed.
And this is more of a feel than exact numbers when you're mixing the audio levels of the voiceover and the sound effects and music. We're going to do a full mix after. As we go, we're just going to try to make it passable, and then we'll make it perfect in the end. And that's some Hollywood stuff at the end that I can show you how to do that's really, really going to level your stuff up. So let's listen to this.
With a wild, untamed spirit.
I'm going to do one more thing to the voice. Within CapCut, we have Enhance Voice, which cleans it up a little bit. Now, the audio is really clean, but this might enhance it a little bit, so I'm just going to click on it.
I love water. The Rogue River surges with a wild, untamed spirit.
And sometimes you want to solo the tracks so you can really see how it's changed. I'm going to turn off the music so we can just listen to this, see if it's any better, if it's worth even keeping that on.
The Rogue River surges with a wild,
There's that, and here it is without it.
The Rogue River surges with a wild.
I can't really tell any difference, but we'll just go ahead and leave it on. And it's a pro feature. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. Just record your audio clean. That's a whole other video. Next, we want to dial in some of the existing sounds. Now, some of these clips do have audio. You can see there's a little line right here if there's any audio built in. The drone stuff does not. But the stuff I shot with my Sony does have audio. And don't worry, I'm not going to show you every one of these clips. It's going to go much faster than that. I just want you to learn the concepts so you can go ahead and finish the rest of it. I slowed down this clip for the shot, as you can see by the word speed here, but it also slowed down the music and it sounded terrible. So I'm just going to click on this clip in the timeline and choose speed and just drag it back up to normal, 1x. So now this is normal. We'll turn this off and we have this sound here. Too short, so we're going to drag it. See how it sounds here? It's possibly a little bit loud, and we'll mix it later. Let's see how that works. That's not bad. We probably want to turn it down just a little bit. We can either turn it down by dragging this guy down a tiny bit, or I can just drag this line up and down right here. Maybe 5 or 7 below is probably going to be good. Let's hear it with the music. That's probably fine. We can see that it's not clipping, and there'll be room for my voice once it kicks in. And we're going to dial this in more later. But one thing that we want to do is to be able to connect these shots. And the music will help connect the shots. The voiceover will help to connect the shots. But the sound effects can also connect the shots. So at every cut, we don't necessarily want an abrupt end of the water trickling down here. This is the hot springs in Iceland. There's water trickling here. Maybe we have it just fade into the next one. That's called an L cut. So the audio is continuing like an L past this shot. So we'll just continue it just for a tiny bit and then have it fade out just by dragging it right here. And you don't necessarily do this with every shot. It just kind of depends on what you are editing. But for this, I think it works. Let's go ahead and extract the audio for one more of these clips so you can see how it's done. This one right here, I'm going to right click on this waterfall. That's Gotafoss, a big old waterfall in Iceland. I'm going to click on extract audio. It shows up down here and disappears from there. And let's see how that sounds just stock out of the gate. That audio works. Audio doesn't always work from your shoot when you film it because you might be talking, there could be background noise, but in this case, sounds like a waterfall, sounds pretty good. But we want that audio to lead just a little bit so they hear the audio before they see the waterfall. So it creates that little bit of anticipation and it helps connect the shots. So this way it's called a J cut because you go down and boom, the audio goes that way. So boom, J cut. Just gonna drag this out a little bit like that and fade it in by clicking this little thing right here so it gets to full blast right when it hits, and it would look like this. It's great, right? It's beautiful. You can hear it coming before it actually hits. In the cut I gave for you guys, anytime there is existing audio, I already made it kind of easy. Let me just show you so you're not confused when you get there. This is the cut I gave you guys, and you'll notice that it has, I'm going to extract that audio. So these are the places where the existing audio is usable, and I actually already adjusted it so there's a little before, after, some J cuts and stuff. So you've got it there, you can delete it, do what you want with it, but that's what yours is going to look like if you decide to use this version of it where you don't have to cut it, instead of this version where you'd have to cut the entire thing. But this is kind of great because you'll be able to use those after. I'm going to delete this, and you will do that rest of that on your own. By the way, usually when you do a music cut like this, it's not going to line up exactly, and you can just drag this guy over some and drag this guy over some, and then just kind of fade it into each other if it's not perfect. You can also, another trick you can do that we do all the time in Hollywood is kind of hide a bad music edit with a sound effect, a boom, explosion, cymbal rolls, whatever. But in this case, it lined up so perfectly that we don't need that. So I'm going to undo, and drag this guy up to here. And, you know, because it's perfect, you don't hear it. Now, what you do notice is that this is too loud. So I'm going to look and see what those levels are, -10, and I'll make this -10 so it matches. So this is just, you know, stuff you'll notice, little things as you go. All right, we know how to adjust the ambient existing sounds. Now we want to add sound effects to enhance this. And, you know, it's fine with just the music and voiceover, but with sound effects, it totally next levels it, so you totally want to stick around to the end so you can watch the finished masterpiece, something you guys can shoot to create. Maybe you can make it even better. The ambient sound here is great, and for here, that's a drone shot. There is no sound, but it's going through a pier at the beach, so we want maybe some waves crashing, some seagulls. So let's try to find that, and we actually have pretty decent stuff here built into CapCut. It's going to click on sound effects and type in ocean and see if I see anything with seagulls. Sound of seagulls, there's one. So I'm just going to drag it down here. Yeah, sounds great. So we're just going to hit that plus sign. It'll drop it in there. I'm just going to shorten it and choose a section that we like. So let's do this. And I want it to start pretty instantly. In fact, so we want to create a J cut and have it slightly before this shot appears. I'm going to drag it up here. You might notice that I have snapping on, which is great depending on what you're doing, especially if you're cutting to the beat, but we want to be off the beat a little bit for this stuff starting. So we're just going to go over here and uncheck this guy, which is snapping. Bam. You can also type the letter N. And I'm going to have this guy go over a little bit here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I have more control. By the way, I do that by holding down the Command key on a Mac or the Control key on a PC and hitting the scroll wheel on my mouse, any mouse. I just have some cheap old mouse. And now we want it to start, let's see. So I want to just fade that in there. So we have this as a beach shot. That's a river shot, so we probably don't want it there because there's not too many seagulls at the river near me. And then we're back to the beach, so maybe I can just use that same stuff over here. So I'm just going to drag this over, and I'm just going to guess that this is going to work like this. And I'm just going to drag this guy back so it fades in and hits really well once it's there. So let's fade this guy out. And again, you don't necessarily have to do this with every cut, but just feel it out. And I didn't like that because that water was too obnoxious, because, you know, this is another, you know, beat shot and not beat shot. So, you know, sounds like it's too close. Listen, hear that? So we're going to get rid of that and just choose a different section. One thing you want to make sure is that you don't repeat the same sound effects over and over again because it gets annoying. If you have the same seagull and the same wave every 5 seconds, it's not going to be great. So let's just go ahead and start this guy, I don't know, right about here. And drag it past this, see if it'll work with that. And let's feel it out. Okay, and another little check. Yeah, I think that works really well. Now, through this tunnel right here, going through the pier here, we've got the seagulls and the water, which is great, but it's going through there. So you want to add sounds that you wouldn't necessarily hear, but can enhance things. It doesn't always have to be an exact match. So I'm going to jump in here and type wind and see if we have anything that'll work as like wind going through there. Let's try a couple. A little too intense, and then we're getting down to, okay. Okay, so CapCut again is limited on the sound effects. You should jump into my sound effects. You'll probably find something. So let's type in something else. I did find an effect that we can tweak to work. It's called Remembering Whoosh. Now let's listen to this guy. Okay, it's a much more subtle kind of sound, and it might be a little high-pitched, but let's go ahead and drop it down here, and I'm just going to solo it so that we only hear that and nothing else, and see if we like it. That almost works, but it's too fast. What can we do? I'm just going to click on it, and I'm going to go to speed, and I'm going to slow it down to half its speed, 0.5x. It made it much longer, which we wanted it longer anyway, and voice tone change. If I don't have that checked, it sounds like this. Still kind of high pitched. If I check that, watch this. Oh yeah, that's cooler, right? So it made it slower, it lasts longer, and it changed the pitch. That's something you can do all the time. If something doesn't work, you can change the pitch, change the speed. Now we just need to line it up. So probably just drag it back just a little bit like that. We obviously don't need all of this, but let's just see how this does. I think that works really well. We don't need all this. We're just going to shorten it, and bam, with all the other tracks, enabling the rest of the audio, it'll sound like this so far.
I love water.
All right, I'm just going to turn that volume down a little bit, and it's going to be up to you to sound design the rest of this stuff with sound effects that either are built into CapCut or the ones that I provided you. I do want to show you one other thing as far as finding sound effects to match what's going on if you don't happen to have the exact match. So we're just going to jump over to this shot of these people paddleboarding. Now that was a drone shot, there was no audio, and if there was, you would have heard the drone, you wouldn't have heard them paddling. It would just be that. But every little sound helps. What if we had a sound of them paddling? So let's go ahead and zoom in on that guy, and they may not have a sound of somebody paddling a paddleboard, so we can just jump up here and type sound of waves. Here's sound of waves. Did you hear? There were 2 paddle strokes in there. Did you catch them? So we're just going to drop this down here, and we can actually see them. Here's one paddle stroke. So we're going to make that one by clicking here, and it's just a matter of lining stuff up. Where does the paddle hit the water? Right there in the very beginning. So we're going to put this right at the very beginning. So let's see what it sounds like. There's one paddle stroke. I think that's going to work. And we don't want to just keep this playing, because if we just keep it playing, it'll sound like this. And that doesn't line up exactly. Let's just find another paddle stroke. And eventually you learn to look for things like, oh, I'll bet you that's a paddle stroke because it got loud again. When I say paddle stroke, I mean a wave that we're going to use for paddle stroke. Let's listen. Yeah, another one. So I'm just going to cut it here, go back maybe a frame, cut it there, Command B on a Mac, Control B on a PC, and just line up that one right with this second stroke, right there. So right there, that's good. And it doesn't need to be long. I'm going to have it, and this one you probably don't need it to continue because of the nature of the sound. We're just going for those paddle strokes, and I'm going to have this guy, I don't know, maybe end there. We don't even need the whole thing, so I'm going to turn them down a little bit, both of them like that, and let's see, with just these 2 tracks, does it look real? And I'm going to go ahead and drag this out, and it's just a matter of trying and testing, and maybe we will drag this out a little bit and just have it fade out. And now we have this. Bam, I think that works great. Waves for a paddle, think creatively. There's always an option with the sound effects available to you. And these are just sound effects built into CapCut. Another kind of sound effect you can add are effects for emphasis. Maybe you can emphasize a point in the cut or a point in the music. Let's go ahead and show you one of those. Right here, let's listen to just the music. I'm going to turn everything else off so we can hear just music. And you'll want to do that a lot so you can really focus on what you're doing. So we had a change in feeling in the music. It just, boom, it dropped down. So what if we could emphasize that with the shot at the same time? We can. Here's a cool little trick. I'm going to type in trailer sound low bass. And this is just one I found. I knew the name already. Trailer sound low bass hit. Listen to this. So that could be cool to enhance the music. So we're just going to click and drag it down here and have it line up precisely. And I'm zooming in and out all day long, so get really good at zooming in and out. There's multiple ways to do it. We can also zoom in and out with this, but I like using the scroll wheel, and I do the same thing in Premiere, actually. And it's going to be a little loud. I can kind of tell I'm going to turn it down a little bit. And I don't need it to go on too long. I'm just going to trim it right here and have it fade out at the end. It's just for adding a little bit of emphasis, that extra je ne sais pas. Ready? Oh, I like that. I'm gonna play it again, just so you can see a little more of it. Yeah, come on. You feel that? Your assignment is to add sound effects to this entire cut. And what do you add? Well, like, what could I hear from here? Well, I'd hear, seagulls and wind. And here I might hear the water rushing and the trees rustling and some ambient sounds of birds. And here it's like, well, there's nothing happening here. Maybe just a light breeze and maybe other sounds of the creatures that might be around Bear Lake. And here, obviously, waterfall sound effects. And then sometimes when you have a transition, like we have a little transition here, you can add a whoosh in there. So just go through here and sound design all of this. What does a sailboat sound like on the water? What would a sailboat sound from here? Would it be a little bit different? What would this splash sound like? Like the sound that I had here didn't work that great, so I had to add a wave splash sound. So I want you to think about this. And then here, underwater, what does that sound like? That low rumble underneath. And maybe this sound was good enough. And actually, the sound was good enough. So I want you to sound design all of this. And after you finish doing all of the sound design, then you have to do the final mix. So I'm going to jump into this other cut right here where I've got it pretty much done already. Here's a look at my sound design so you can kind of have a feel for what I've done with this. I'm going to zoom in just a tiny bit so you can fit it on here. Okay, so I'm just going to pause here so you can see what I did, where my voiceover starts, where the piano here. I think we did a better cut, you and I, than I did by myself. And this is bad. Why is this bad? Because I have a boat engine on my piano thing. I'm going to drag it down here. Make sure snapping's on so it doesn't lose its place. Bam. And you can see what I've done here. The names are going to be a little bit different probably for you, but you don't have to match this. This is just so you can see. But how do we sound design it? Number one, you want to make sure that the voiceover is priority. You want to be able to hear the audio. So the other stuff should be lower or low enough so that you can hear the voiceover. Second, you want to adjust the music so that when there are dead spaces, the music is pumped. This is a big thing that almost nobody does on YouTube. This is super cinematic. When I was editing, a 15-second commercial, if there was a breath where the voiceover was gone, the music would jump up for a second and jump down. This is how you do that. And you can see that I've done it here. We've done it with keyframes. Dude, this will so next level your stuff. So let's go ahead and turn everything else off except for the voiceover and the music and watch what I do. I want you to listen how the music is gently bumped and then lowered in between breaths.
I love water. The Rogue River surges with a wild, untamed spirit. Dreams.
In fact, here I didn't do it. Looks like I started to, but I didn't. And it was so subtle you couldn't tell. But you want to fill the gaps when there is nothing happening so it doesn't get boring. And let's go ahead and show you how to do it for this space right here. And you see the levels are the same, but there's empty. There's nothing happening here in terms of voiceover music. So we set a keyframe where we want the audio to start to go up. And we already have a keyframe there, the way you set when it's clicking this button. Then you go forward about, 4 to 6 frames. Everybody does their own thing. I shoot for about 4, so I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to set another keyframe. And I'm going to go to this one here, and I'm going to go back 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, set another keyframe. I got to make sure this clip is highlighted. Click on this guy. And then I'm just going to raise this up. Now I could raise this keyframe up like this, but then it's going to be uneven. Or I could just click and drag on this line and drag it up just a little bit so that it gets a little louder and fills the void.
The Rogue River surges with a wild, untamed spirit. Dreams become reality in Bear Lakes.
So did you hear it? Even during this tiny section, it bumped up a little bit, and it is just going to sound just so much better. So in practice, you want to make sure the voiceover is all consistent. You might need to adjust it ever so slightly, and then add the music and adjust all of the music so all of those empty spaces are filled. And we can see we've done it here and here, but there's a spot here where it could be bumped up a little bit. We're just going to do it one more time so you learn how to do it. This track has to be enabled to do it. So it's on. I'm going to click on it, set a keyframe here, go forward 4 frames, set another keyframe, go over to here where I want it to be full, add a keyframe, go back 4 frames, and I'm just going to bump this up just a little bit. And we don't want it to go over 0, so probably somewhere around there, and we can test it.
Distant shores. The ocean is where my...
See that? Just that gentle thing makes all the difference. So you want to do that for the entire thing. And at the end, when there's no voiceover, notice that I bumped up the levels for all of the music. Lastly, you want to go through and enable all of the audio tracks and adjust the levels for each of the sound effects to make sure they're not too loud, that you can still hear the music and you can still hear the voiceover. Once you've done your final mix, hopefully with headphones, wired headphones, you probably don't want to use Bluetooth because there can sometimes be a delay and that will seriously mess you up. Then you want to listen to it on your computer speakers and then export it and listen to it on your phone. You'll spend all this time creating this masterpiece in 4K for beautiful headphones, and most people are probably going to watch it on your phone. So make sure you can hear stuff on your phone. It doesn't have the same dynamic range. You're not going to hear those deep basses and lows as much. So you might have to adjust things a little bit. So for sure, listen on your phone when you're done. When it's all said and done, this spot could look something like this.
I love water. The Rogue River surges with a wild, untamed spirit. Dreams become reality in Bear Lake's turquoise blue waters. And Iceland's Gotafoss is quite literally the waterfall of the gods. But the ocean, where every wave whispers tales of ancient journeys, and the salty breeze carries the promise of distant shores. The ocean is where my soul finds its refuge. And no matter where my life takes me, I'll always find my way back home.
If you want to be able to create stuff like this from scratch, you really need my course, Master CapCut, where I walk you through everything CapCut does, so you're not searching around online trying to figure out how to do stuff on your own. Plus, it's the only place where you get direct access to me. In the course, there's a discussion section. You have a question, you type it in there, and I will personally answer every single question that you guys ask. So do the very best thing possible for yourself and your YouTube channel this year, and check out my course, Master CapCut, by clicking on this link right here, or clicking on the link in the description below. And there's absolutely no risk. If you don't like it for any reason, you just tell me and I'll give you a full refund. Can't wait to see you there.